Frank Lynch,
Good morning, sir.
thanks for coming in to see us.
No problem.
I'm surprised we've not had you in earlier. You've managed to escape for a long time now.
Yeah.
It's great to have somebody where we can put normal lighting up because you get a head of hair.
All right.
See the guys we get in here that causes problems with reflections off their head and all that. Frank, walking football. How did you get involved in? When did you first hear about it?
I actually first heard about it down at Giffnock North.
You're a name dropper. He's one of these name droppers.
Andy Gallagher.
Never heard him.
Another name. Him and I were playing down there, and there was a lad, Michael Cassidy.
You were playing normal football down there?
Yeah.
Normal.
So there was a lad, Michael Cassidy, who was an older guy, older than us at the time, and he was playing. It turned out it was the geriatrics.
Right.
And this is way back. This is about 2013, 14.
Okay.
I don't even know if they called themselves that in those days, but
this is what's now the geriatrics.
Yeah.
The East Kilbride geriatrics.
That's right. It's the same guys.
Okay.
It's the same guys.
That's why they're good. They've been playing forever.
Well, exactly.
Been playing since they won the geriatrics.
I know. So he was talking about it, and then, of course, Andy, he got injured. He had the hip operation.
Right.
And he started playing walking football. And he said to me,
where was he playing?
He was actually playing at Bellahouston.
Right.
Because he was really in a bad way at the time. And he was just trying to get back. So he was telling me.
This was after his operation?
This was after his operation.
And this is part of his rehabilitation is to come back?
Rehab.
Okay.
So I'd said to him, I said, I don't mind coming down. And he said, look, I think it's maybe a bit slow for you because it was good for him at the time. So that was fine. And then later on he said, why don't you come down now? He was playing down at Torry Glen.
Right. So was that a bit slow? What did you think when he said walking football? What was your first thought?
I thought it'd be a bit slow for me because I could still run.
And was it?
Well, we went to Torry Glen and with John Wark, it was taking it. And the only thing...
John Wark, Ipswich, Scotland?
No, John Wark. No, he was goalkeeper. Right. He was one of the coaches.
Right. I played with John Wark, did you know that?
Name dropping it.
He probably drops my name as well.
Last time I spoke to him, he said that.
Well, what he says to people when they mention my name is, who? So,
went down to Torry Glen, and the only thing was, it was about 13 aside.
Okay.
Aye, and not having played walking football.
This is way back at the beginning?
Yeah, it was about 2017, I think.
All right, that's not...
So I played, but apart from the fact I'd never played walking football, there was too many.
Too busy. Mm-hmm.
But I think it was actually Jim Russell who said to me afterwards, he says, I think you'd enjoy the Glasgow Green better.
Right.
He said, it's on a Wednesday morning, we don't get as many people there, and it's a bit faster, so...
That was very sensible for Jim Russell.
It was, I thought.
Possibly the last time,
I thought it was quite sensible then, it just shows
how appearances can deceive us.
First and last. So it's actually him you've got to blame for me still being around because, the Torry Glen thing wasn't doing it for me.
Right.
But when I went to the Green, it was about 7 or 8 aside, and you'd guys like Russell and...
Outdoors?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And outside the cages, was it on the big park?
It depended on the number. Sometimes we played in the cages, sometimes we played out in the, So that was it. So I was playing down there. I was only there 2 or 3 weeks, and John Martin asked me if I wanted to play in the tournaments at Ravenscraig.
I remember John now, the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Yes, he did Kelvin Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice guy.
Yeah. So I started playing then, instead of playing the tournaments at Ravenscraig. Chris.
Was that the start of the tournament then?
It
was that the start of the Glasgow team?
Yeah. I think.
Okay.
So I played there, and then it's funny because they were starting the 65s team, and Russell came up to me one day and says, Frank, you're not 65, are you? And I said, no, Russell. And he says, just we're starting a 65s team. And I says, I'm 66. And he says, that's brilliant. He says, you'll run riot at 65s. I said, run riot, walking football.
Walking football, that's good, isn't it?
So
there's a referee that would say that's correct.
Don't mention the referees, please.
There was a guy at the last tournament, the referee, that ex-policeman referee, and for some reason he just had it in for you, Frank. It's just, everybody else could almost do it they like, but as soon as you get the ball, he had the whistle in his mouth waiting to blow it. Is there a history there with you and him?
A wee bit from
his wife or something?
Absolutely not. My wife will be watching this.
Oh, of course.
No, I think it's quite ironic because when I went to Ravenscraig at first, I didn't have a clue. The first 2 games, in fact, we played. There was 2 Glasgow teams, and we played. I think your team, Chris's team, and yeah.
Oh, it was Glasgow East and Glasgow West.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Yes.
In the first 2 games we lost. They beat us 2-0. Somebody else beat us 1-0, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was just, and he was the referee, that guy. So after the game, to be fair, he got hold of me and he said, "Look," he says, "I'll show you how to walk fast." So he actually showed me almost like the John Cleese silly walk.
Yes.
To walk fast. So it's quite ironic that
the straight leg.
Yeah.
Because it's nothing to do with how fast you're going; it's how you look.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Bending your legs and the arms pumping is a bit of a clue as well. Cammy's the worst runner in the world.
Aye.
In fact, he looks like he's running when he's walking. So that's interesting. But why has he got it in for you then? If you tried to help.
I don't know. But it was funny because at the start of that game, before I'd even kicked the ball, he turned around to me. The player was up the other end. He turned around and he says, "You're running, Frank."
Right.
And I thought,
so you've not taken on his lessons. That's what he thinks.
I thought he remembers me. But no, I think it was quite restrictive. And I think that's the thing about walking football. You've got to try and get into the the way of playing it.
See, I've got a theory about walking football. I've got a few theories.
Really?
But the latest one is that you can be really good at football, and that doesn't guarantee you being any good at all. In fact, it could be a hindrance to walking football because it's a different game.
Absolutely.
And what Pollock are struggling with just now is adapting to that. Good players adapting. And the teams that are doing really well are the Jerry Hattricks and the Glasgows who've played together for 10 years now. And they've adapted and realised what the tactics need to be and that you need to put the ball to feet and all that kind of stuff. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%. And then in the Ravenscraig, we played Hearts. I think the 3rd game I played. And I thought, they're all running. But they weren't. But the way they were playing, and they played together for years. They won it the first, I think, 2 years it was running. Yeah. And we had better football players than they did. But they knew how to play walking football. They knew how to play it. It was unbelievable.
Well, at least one person agrees with.
No, really? Really. But it's quite funny. We were playing Hearts, and we'd gone on after we lost the initial 2 games. I think we won 12 in a trot. And we weren't far away from Hearts. We played them in the penultimate game. And we thought, right, we need to win it. So we're talking before the game, and we all had a wee bit. Frank McCann was there, myself, Chipman. And I says, look, we need to watch them at corners. I says, they always score from corners. I says, they've got people moving.
They've got a thing. They've got a thing.
Yeah. So it's like nothing each 2 minutes to go. They get a corner. Ball comes across, guy's in the end of the box. The player that was marking him didn't do what I told him, right? Blah, blah, blah. Guy sticks in the bottom corner. Player marking him, me.
Fair enough.
And it was unbelievable because what they do is they stand on the line so you can't stand behind them. Because you stand behind them, it's a penalty. And as the ball came across, he just sort of leant back and turned and stuck it in the bottom corner. That was it.
You fell for it. You're so busy directing traffic, you forgot to do what you were supposed to be doing.
Exactly. But they had the knack and the technique, how to play it.
If it's any consolation, Frank, that's rubbish now.
And nobody beat us last week.
Did they? Oh, God. That doesn't mean they're not rubbish.
He's obviously doesn't watch the videos.
Did I not make that video? No.
Nicky recorded it.
Aye. They beat you 1-0, 2-1.
They beat us 1-0. We actually played really well. We played well in the 3 games, but it's hard because we don't have a natural.
You don't remember you can hit the ball. So, walking football's part of your life now then, Frank. Do you still play football?
Well, I've just started back very, very recently at Gifford because I hadn't played. I got a very bad injury at Gifford in 2000.
Is that outdoor?
Yeah, it's outdoor and it's
grass?
It's the big grass park at Gifford.
Yes, I do.
No?
Yeah.
Well, it depends. For years we used to play in the Red Blaze, and then there was a park at the side because the groundsman at the time would never let you play in the big park.
Right.
Pre-match days, but I think with COVID and everything else, it's changed. So most weeks now they play in the big park. They play inside as well in the winter down at Shawbridge.
And you're now in our Pollock's over 70 squad.
It's shocking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're still playing real football.
Yeah,
is it 5-a-side, 6-a-side?
No, sometimes it can be 9 or 10-a-side.
Okay.
And a lot of the guys that play there are ex-junior. Not a lot of them ex-junior, a few ex-junior, a couple of ex-pros.
So you don't keep that level of fitness, Frank. There's very few over 70s that still play five-a-side football. Right? You're obviously an exception. Football's been part of your whole life.
Part of my whole life.
So what was the start of that love affair, Frank?
Well, I moved. I was born in Gorbals, in Crown Street.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
No, I assumed that.
Jim McCallum last week he was in here.
Gorbals, man.
Gorbals boy.
Yeah. What street did he say?
Caledonia, 42 Caledonia Street, Caledonia Road.
Yeah, Caledonia Road. I was 47 Crown Street.
Crown Street.
Paddy Graham was 470 Crown Street.
Right.
And Benny Lynch, no relation. He was through the back. He dead at that time enough, but he was from Florence Street.
Right. And that's where the primary school is. Is that right?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, it's all changed now anyway, that's for sure.
Everything's changed. So we moved up to Castlemilk.
So it was street football in the Gorbals,
I didn't play. I was only about 4.5.
Okay,
So,
when you got out of it, when you left there?
when I left there to the country.
Yeah, out to the sticks.
Castlemilk.
Castlemilk would be quite new then.
Fantastic.
Was that a new scheme then? Like Easter
Brand new.
Boys, or-
Brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely brand new. There wasn't much in it. There wasn't any schools in it at the time. There was very little else.
Right. Wow.
But it was just greenery and woods and grass and whatever.
Yeah. Nearly joined Geesco Blade now.
That's it. Well, when we went there, Fernhill, which is
Yeah.
anybody that knows Castlemilk knows the hole in the wall.
Yes.
Well, we lived just right there and through there. It's Fernhill now,
Uh-huh.
but it was just farms. So like you would look out
Wow.
the window in the morning and there'd be cows round the back
Right.
because they'd wandered over from what is now Fernhill. So there was nothing there. East Kilbride was very, very little. in
This
East
is
Kilbride.
grazing cows we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
just to clarify.
Yeah, I don't know what else you would be talking about this time.
Okay.
Obviously. So it was football, basically just played football, played for the school team, etc., etc. And then it was just
See, people forget that in those days, outdoor, you just get put out the door. And a
Absolutely.
ball was it was free. As long as one of you had a ball of any description,
that was it.
then you were occupied for hours on end.
That was it.
Yeah.
The old Fridos, remember them?
I do.
The sort of dimple ones.
Aye.
The problem with them is where we played, it was right next to like thorn bushes and stuff. So, you'd be playing for about 10 minutes and the balls literally burst.
So, school, what school did you go to?
I went to St Dominic's Primary School.
Right.
And then,
Play football there?
aye,
Right. So football's now every day. It's an everyday thing.
every day. In fact, when I was at school, the first 4 boys at that time could go to St Mungo
Okay.
up the town.
What do you mean the first 4 boys?
First 4 boys in the class. So after your
At football or
No.
academically?
academically, you could go to
St Mungo's,
St Mungo's.
kind of senior school kind of thing.
well, St Mungo's was regarded as one of the better schools, but it was up
Right.
the other end of the city.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, city centre, wasn't it? Kicadens?
Yeah, and all the most of the footballers were going to.
So the top 4 went to St Mungo's. That was a wee bit like the comprehensive system when
Aye.
a few years later when they changed.
Yeah.
And all the good footballers went away to Hamilton Crescent. And I was stuck at England, but they all came back a year later.
Yeah.
So you were in the top 4, so you went to St Mungo's.
But I didn't go to St Mungo
I know.
because all the football players were going to St Margaret Names.
Right, okay.
And also it was the travelling. I'd have to
Yes.
travel.
So you wanted to stay with all your pals.
Basically, yeah.
What age were you? 11, 10?
Yeah,
Going to
yeah.
secondary
11,
school we're
yeah,
talking about.
11.
Did you have that choice, or was it your parents really that decided that you were staying?
No, I had a choice.
Brothers and sisters, Frank?
Sister, yeah.
Right.
Trish, she's older. She's 2.5 years older than me.
So what you're telling me really is you were quite clever when you were 11, 60 odd years ago.
I know what happened.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, no. But,
Compared with who you were at school with, being fourth, it's only relative to who was in the class.
absolutely. And I think it
Many
was,
were in the class.
I was about 60.
I thought it was 4.
And mostly girls. But it's amazing the class sizes in those days as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's just funny you saying that because when I was 11, all the decisions that were getting made about your life, what school to go to, O levels, all that, what class subjects you were going to take, everything was dictated by football. That's all that really mattered. Am I playing on Saturday? I go, that's all that matters, isn't it?
Absolutely.
What did you play for anybody other than just the school at that age?
Yeah, I played with the school in the morning. I played with the boys' guild in the afternoon.
Yeah.
In fact, our big rivals were S03E10 from Postle.
Oh, my old school?
Yeah.
My old school?
Yeah. They were, the boys' guild team was St Martin's.
Right.
Although the primary school was St Martin's.
Yeah.
St Dominic's. It was St Martin's boys' guild team from Castlemilk. So.
Okay, and then secondary school, still playing for the school,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Ever any sniff of getting scouted or trials or anything like that, Frank?
Yeah, when I was 15, my gym teacher, Frank McGregor, he played with Johnson Borough when they won the,
Oh, yes.
when they won the Junior Cup in '63. It was funny because they were playing Cambuslang in the final, and the week before it, we were playing football in the school, and the ball came across, I scored. So in those times, Stevie Chalmers, when he scored, there was no like big celebrations back in the day, but Stevie Chalmers, when he scored, he'd go away like this.
Yeah.
So when I scored, I go, I turned around, and Mr. McGregor, Frank McGregor, shouted, Lynch, what are you doing? He says, celebrating. I go, he says, go on. So
What did you do?
I just did that.
Oh, right. No, Ronaldo or anything? Or somersaults or anything?
Not one of these, no. So on the Saturday, of course, they were playing Cambuslang Rangers
Okay.
at Hampden. I think there was 75,000 there.
Right, so it's cup final, junior cup final, amateur cup final.
63 junior. So he's playing left back. So of course for Johnson, so Cambuslang Rangers are winning now 1-0. It's late on in the game. The ball comes out, and he hits one from about 30 yards right in the top corner. And he's going crazy.
Celebrates.
He's going crazy. So I'm thinking, yeah, beauty. So of course,
It's before mobile phones, of course, and you could go.
So of course we've got him like first class Monday morning.
Right, brilliant.
So he goes in, I'm standing. He turns and he goes, Lynch, not a win.
Preempted it.
And then they won the replay 3-0. I think it was a Wednesday night.
Right.
They won the replay 3-0.
See, just what you're saying there, and I was talking about Jim McCallum being here last week in the Gorbals, and he mentioned people, Mr. Such, just like you did, and I can remember Mr. McIver at my school who ran the football. I think in those days the schools, the PE teachers and guys that ran the football all had connections with the scouting system.
Absolutely.
For the teams.
Absolutely.
Because Jim was recommended. He didn't know anything about it. His parents get a call from Celtic Park who want to speak to your son. Can you bring him up to Parkhead? That's the school that have sown that seed.
Yeah.
They obviously would phone and say, you want to have a look at this kid, you know. I don't think that's going on now. Because the schools don't take as much to do with organised football anymore. Yeah. It's places like Pollard with the youth systems that are doing it.
That's it. But so Mr. McGregor, he said, do you fancy coming down to Queen's Park?
Right.
And so I went down there and I was just sort of training.
Into the park with a teacher?
No, it was a very good side.
Really?
That always comes. So anyway, I went down and there's a boy called Dougie Orr was the coach.
That's another channel.
All right. I've seen it. So Dougie Orr was the coach at the time. And they had a big trial, they had like all sorts of guys down there. Played in the Red Blaze, the trial. So I get into the squad for the under-15s. So I'd only been there and walking in the Hampden, but I thought, what's this? Really the baths and all that sort of stuff. So I'd only been there a couple of weeks.
A bath? You'd never seen one of them in Castlemilk?
Really. So anyway, I'm in the dressing room for training, I'm getting ready, and one of the guys comes out and he says, oh, you knew? He said, so he goes in, the guy says, what's your name? I said, Frank Lynch. He says, all right, your boots are up there, mate. I said, my boots? He says, your boots? He says, you're at Queen's Park now. He says, come on, get your things right. So I goes up, Lynch. I said, brilliant. Out in the park. Next thing, right, okay, who's got my boots? Andy Lynch.
Brilliant. You're in your bare feet now.
So I'm thinking, and I was telling my dad, he says, wait a minute, you thought they were going to give you a pair of football. So I was there for a while, but the problem with me was I was never quite sure where to play. And I started off at left back, and then it was...
You're left-footed?
I'm not left-footed, but I can use it.
You always tend to be at the left side, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
So then I thought, no, and he says, right, we'll play midfield, so I was playing right half. But unfortunately for me, the right half for their team at the time was Derek Parlin.
Right.
And I never saw him because he stayed in Arica, I think it was, and he went to come through training. I think his dad was on the board at Queen's Park or something as well. But
That always helps.
so I was there for a while, and then I wasn't getting a game, so I thought no. So I just went back, played Boys Guild, and then I played under 21 juvenile with Milton Campsie.
Right.
Campsie and the Black Watch, next door neighbours. It's unbelievable. So I played there, and I'd get a trial, I think, with Dumbarton when Jackie Stewart was the manager.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was a couple of trials with teams, but if you played in trials, you were playing with their reserves, and they wouldn't give you the ball because they didn't want somebody
competition
and take.
Or they'd give you a bad ball, a hospital ball.
Absolutely. But we were playing. There was another lad that played with me. He was a centre forward, and he was a member of a sort of well-known Glasgow gang family, so I won't mention his name. But he was a crack footballer, and the two of us got a try with Dumbarton. And we were playing, and I was playing sort of a left wing, he was playing up front, but we weren't getting a touch. And it was about 10-15 minutes to go. I says, look, you get the ball, give it to me, I'll give it to you. So we were getting beat 1-0. I scored one, he scored one. And we won 2-1. So we came in, and Jackie Stewart says, why did you not play like that for the full game? And I said, well, ask your team. And he says, right. He said, well, come and watch it again. But
these things just don't come around that often, do they? It just shows you how fate interferes at just a split second, and it can change your whole life, just like that, isn't it? So, had you left school at this point?
Yeah, I'd left school and went to work in the savings bank, National Savings, or Butlins as we called it. And that was unbelievable. And there's always been a connection between wherever I worked in football, funnily enough. And we're always happier if I could combine the two. And the savings bank was incredible, and I'm sure there were people watching who went to the savings bank. But you had like all these mainly young people, you know, and Hugh McDade. That's where.
What do you mean it was incredible for football?
Football and also social, because you had all these sort of young people. And it was unbelievable. So they used to have a football tournament, and there was 64 teams in it. Seriously, five aside. And also you were playing down at where the savings bank was, it's at South Pollock, so you had the parks right at your back. So in the summer, everybody was out there playing football.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And Hugh McDade went there, that's when I met.
Ah, yes.
But it was funny because when I played junior as well, but I played with Rob Roy when I was really young, and then I played with Peter Hill. But we used to go into the Alhambra in the town on a Saturday, and all the junior guys.
Why the north of the city? Why Rob Roy and Kirky?
Well, I played with Milton. Through a boy who used to play with the Boys Guild, and I was getting fed up playing with the guild. So there was two brothers who worked in Weirs.
I don't know what the Boys Guild was.
Boys Guild was basically.
I know there might be somebody else, doesn't it?
It was funny because you had to be a Catholic to play in the Boys Guild.
All right. Okay.
It was like a social part of the church set up, I suppose. And so you played for the school, and then if you.
So it's about like Rangers, the opposite. In those days, before Mo Johnson.
Yeah, it was funny because we had a guy played with us, and he was a Protestant, right? He was a really good player, but all his mates, it was a bit crazy because all his mates were Catholics, and playing with this team, he couldn't play because he was a Protestant. So we played him, but we were playing a team.
Just to blame him.
It was that
if you got beat.
He's probably the best player, but we were playing a league decider, and the man that was running the team we were playing was a teacher in our school.
Right.
So he'd watched a couple of our games, and he said to me, he said, that's a good boy up front. And church is he? And I says, oh,
what church?
I says, he goes to whatever. I said, I don't really know. He lives up the other part. So we were playing them, and I said to the priest that was running the team, I says, you'll not be able to play him.
The priest?
Aye, priest.
Okay.
Dependent. So I says, you won't be able to play him against him because this guy, So we're playing away, and as I'm playing, I walks in, and I see our teacher walking round to have a word with him, and I'm going on. And he says, I thought you played by this team. And he says, I can't because I'm a prodigy. And he went, did it? So we put in a protest, and we lost it. But you think of that now, absolutely crazy, wasn't
Aye.
Jesus.
And I tend to think of it the other way around, Frank, that it was the other side that were more, you know what I mean? But segregation is segregation.
That was it.
And the Catholic schools all played together and all the rest of it. There'll be people watch this. If anybody ever watches it, we've not got a viewer yet, but if we ever get a viewer, they'll be thinking, what are these guys talking about? You know? And hopefully, over the next 200 years, we can get rid of all that completely. Because they're still throwing seats at each other at Parkhead, you know? It's unbelievable.
It's crazy because in the extreme of that was we had a priest that came from the East End, and he was a bit crazy. So what you had a boys' girl mass for the team every month,
right? And
you had to go to it, right? So we had two teams. We had an under-19 team and we had an under-16 team, right. And I played in the under-16s. So the under-16s, none of us drank and all that. So we all went to mass, but the guys at 19, 18, they didn't, you know. So we were playing St Teresa, semi-final,
great team,
up at St Roch's, and the final was played. The John Thompson Trophy was played at Parkhead.
Right.
So you've one game away from playing at Parkhead, right? So on the Wednesday at training, the priest comes in and he says, right, everybody goes to mass, and Sunday we were playing, I think it was a Monday night. He says, if you don't go to mass, you're not playing. This is the 19th, so it's not affecting us. So that's fine. So of course we're at mass, and he comes in and he starts taking names. He says, right, where's the 19s? None of them were there.
None of them.
There was two guys there.
That's the way you do it, isn't it?
There was two guys there. So he then says, right, okay.
They were rubbish.
So he says, right, you lot are playing, you're playing St Teresa in the final.
The underagers?
Under 16s are playing. Wow.
And he did that?
St Teresa's under 19s.
Did you get gubbed?
No. So we were playing them, and it's like one each, 5 minutes to go. And the ball bounces, I'm playing sat midfield. And I've hit it, comes off the back of a guy's head, loops up, drops in the top.
That's a great shot, that.
2-1.
You play snooker?
2-1, no. So 2-1, and I thought, oh, that's it. And right in time, I don't know if you know a guy called Paddy Turner. He played.
I think so.
He played it, I think he was from Portsmouth.
Right.
But he played a lot of junior football. He went senior.
I've spent the last 50 odd years trying to forget all these guys that are impossible. It's a lot of therapy involved in there.
But right in time up, he's scored an equaliser. So it goes to penalties.
Right.
And I took the first one, scored it, and then but we could beat penalties.
That's the 16s playing the 19s.
Playing the 19s, aye. But the 19 boys weren't very happy.
No, well, there's a good chapel.
You beat penalties. Was Jimmy Russell on your team?
I'm saying nothing about penalties. I missed the last two I've taken.
That's right.
And there we go. But it's crazy when you think it.
So there's another tie up there. We were talking about school teachers, sports teachers, not just sports. Mr. McIver wasn't a PE, he was a maths teacher. He was a head of maths at Hindland School.
Yeah.
But he ran everything to do with the football. But the other tie up is with the churches. I played with the BB, and you could only play if you went to Sunday school on a Sunday morning.
That's right, because my best man played with the BB.
If you didn't go to Sunday school, you didn't get in the foot. How is that way I pick a squad? Do you know what I mean?
He said I couldn't play because I was a Catholic. BB.
Wow.
I didn't want to anyway, their team was rubbish.
It's a laugh. Looking back, I played 4 times at the weekend. I played twice on a Saturday and twice on a Sunday. I didn't care who I was playing for. It didn't bother me. But Sunday school was a bit of a bind.
But football kept you right, didn't it? It kept you away from the...
Yes, and that's what McCallagh was speaking about last week in the Gorbals, that you only had to make one wrong turn and you could go down the wrong path for the rest of your life.
That's
but football, and he spoke about Mr. Such and Such, Mr. Such and Such, we've not published it yet, who ran community groups. Was it St. Luke's?
Yeah,
community hall.
That was my primary school.
So you've been here like Jim's 75, so you're not as far, you're only a couple of years.
That's right.
Frank. And he talked about Mr. Such, Mr. this and Mr. that.
A couple of years.
Gave these boys 5, you're only just 70. God, you look older than that. They kept the community, kept all the boys night and day, got them floodlights so they could still play football at night time to keep them off the streets, because the streets were slightly different in those days. So, work-wise, you mentioned the bank. How long did that last?
The bank lasted...
You keep taking us back to football.
I know. The bank lasted 5 years. The thing with the savings bank, and anybody that worked there will tell you this, that if you left before 5 years, you got your national insurance back your pension.
Right.
If you stayed after 5 years, that was frozen
That was you tied
until you
in.
retired. So you had to make a decision.
Yes.
So,
So nearly everybody left at 4 years,
a lot of people did.
364
A
days.
lot of people did. So I was, I'd been in just a bit over 4 years. And it was quite funny. I'd been going with this girl for like 4 years. And then we stopped going to each other. And she was still friendly with my sister, etc. So she, just out of the blue one day, she came up and she said to us, I thought she's really trying to get rid of me. She says, why don't you go to Australia?
I've got your ticket.
and I said, sorry? And she says, no, I was watching a programme, and she says, I know your aunt. My aunt was over visiting her son. He lived in Sydney. And she says, you know, you've got to leave before the 5 years is up,
Yeah.
whatever, you're fed up and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you go in? You can play football and all that over there.
Yeah.
So I thought, I was thinking about it. And then
What year would this be?
that was 1974.
Okay.
1974. So,
And the Australians would pay you to go over at that point?
well, just about, it was £10.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they changed it to, when I eventually went, it was £46.03.
Right.
That's
Because I remember the 60s, I joined the post in the 70s. They were desperate for
Yeah.
tradesmen, they were just, she tried to get in now.
I know.
It's hard enough to get in a holiday.
I know. So that time, I think the place now is the Strand that people applied to, but at that time it was Jamaica Street,
Okay.
next to the Central Cinema, which you probably know about.
Yes, I do. I've
Yeah.
heard of it.
Not that I was ever in it.
No. Chris told me about it.
And so
It's another classic.
I was just testing you this.
Classic grand.
Well done.
Tell me all about it.
So I went there, I went for an interview, and fun enough, she actually came with me. And the guy came out and he says, right, I said, is it a couple? I says, no, it's just me. And I got up and she just
Burst out crying.
And there was a sort of,
Okay, so she thought the two of you were going.
aye, she thought two of us were going.
Did you get accepted?
I did get accepted.
Right.
And I had another girlfriend by this time,
Right.
and who's now my wife.
Okay.
But I'd
Mrs. Lynch. Hello, Mrs. Lynch.
only been out with Geraldine for it was about 3 months. And
Right. Geraldine's your wife?
aye,
Yes.
and I got accepted. So
You talk about it all the time. How did I not know that?
So I do. So I love it. So I says to her, and I says, "You fancy going to Australia?" Thinking you should never go to Australia. And she said,
She'd say, where?
she said, "Yeah, okay." And we'd only been out for 3 months.
Wow.
I'd never met her family or anything. And
So you sent her to Australia?
but no, so I went to Australia, and it was just like a month before the 5 years would have been up.
Right.
So I went there.
Whereabouts?
Sydney.
Yeah.
Sydney. And Geraldine came out on, in fact, she flew over Darwin when the hurricane hit it.
Wow.
Yeah, and the hurricane hit Darwin just before Christmas, 74. She just missed it, basically. So she came over in late December, and then we were there for 2 years, and I was playing football over there, obviously.
Yes, obviously.
Aye, and I was playing with a team called Bondi Marine.
Right.
But it's funny when
Just south of Sydney.
it
Had anything to do with Bondi?
it's Bondi.
Bondi Beach.
It's on Bondi.
Yeah. See, when you were playing over here, what was your nickname?
Everybody knew me as Franny.
I'd heard that, but I didn't think it was Franny. Are you sure it was Franny?
Sometimes it was.
So Australia, playing football.
Australia.
What was the standard like out there, Frank?
Standard was probably junior sort of level.
What was the structure? You know how we've got youth football, amateur football, junior football. We had
Right.
junior.
At that time, you didn't have the national leagues. You didn't
Okay. So soccer hadn't taken off over there at that
have
point,
they still called football over there.
did
I think it was soccer in Australia.
it? Right.
No, I can remember. But so you could play sort of professional, semi-professional, and then the league that I played in at the time was called the Inter-Suburban. So that was
Okay.
probably top amateur, maybe junior.
Because the distances are so large over there as well. aren't
Absolutely.
they?
So I went there and I'd looked up a few teams before I was going. So I was living in Sydney in a place called Ryde, which is like the eastern suburbs, not too far from the Bondis and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
So there was a couple of teams. There was a Queen's Park,
Right.
and there was another one that was called Bondi Marine. But so I'd actually written to the guy at Queen's Park, said I was playing junior football here, blah, blah, blah. And he says, come over and we'll give you a trial and all that sort of stuff. So I went over, I was living with my cousin and his wife at the time.
What were you doing for a living?
I actually got a job in it was like a container shipping company.
Okay.
And so it was only like a short time I worked in there, and but I was doing that, and it was quite near where my cousin lived, so it was quite handy. I later got a job in a bigger shipping container company in Sydney.
Right.
Once I moved, so I was working there, and then it was actually off season there at the time.
Employment was different. Aldo asked me a question the other day in his interview. He said, "Did you ever have a problem getting a job?" Because he's ages for yourself. He's 75.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was meaning was, in those days, you just went and got a job. There was never any hassle for getting a job. You picked your job.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So I was working there, and then I was just up in the park one day knocking the ball about, and there was a couple of guys playing, and they says, "Tom, who you playing with anyone?" No, I said, "I've got a game for Queen's Park." And they said, "Why don't you come and play with us?" The game was called Bondi Marine. And
they were looking for frannies at the time.
They were looking for good frannies in Scotland. So I went up to a training session with them, and that was fine. And then they said, "Right, we've got a friendly next week, come up." And they played in this, it was called Waverley Oval. It was overlooking the Pacific. It was absolutely gorgeous. So I said, "That's fine." So I'm going up this Saturday, so I'm going in. There's all these TV cameras and all that there. And I thought, oh yeah, that's a good welcome.
Where's my boots with my name on them?
So I thought, what's this? And don't know if you remember the guy. It was played for England, Tony Gregg.
Yes, I
big
do.
South African guy.
Yeah, great stuff.
So he comes walking out the thing, and he must have been about 6'5", 6'6", immaculate, absolutely big, just a really handsome,
Adonis.
big, incredible. And he had actually signed for Waverley Cricket Club,
right?
And that was him sort of coming up. So that was after he'd played for England.
Aye.
So I think he's actually dead now, sadly.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he is. So it was him. It wasn't the cameras were up for me. So, but I played with them, and I could have actually gone and played with some other teams. We actually played a testimonial game for a lad from Clydebank who was sadly killed in a car crash over there. And somebody was watching the game and said, "Look, he's from Glasgow. Do you want to come? We're having it was a Glasgow Dundee select for some reason." And Frank Halfie was our goalkeeper.
Right.
That day, big Halfie, he was over there at the time. Willie Wallace was meant to come, but he never turned up.
So he lived in Australia at that time.
So I played there, and then
still does, I think. Well, I think
he does.
Still
I think he does. Paul McStay, I think, is over there as well now.
Yes.
Yeah. But I was playing over there, and
but you laid the tracks for these guys.
Absolutely, I was a trendsetter. So I was playing over there, and there was a guy at a game one day, and a boy called Trevor Pugh, a Welsh guy. He came up after the game and he said, "Do you fancy playing in New Zealand?" And I said, "What?" I thought somebody was writing me up. I said, "What is it?" And he said, "No," I said, "I'm over looking for players and blah, blah, blah." So I thought, so I says to Jared, I said,
"Wish I'd won my New Zealand top today."
I says, they want me to go, this guy wants me to go over to New Zealand. He'd only seen me playing one song. I said, "I don't know." So I was saying about, I thought, this is good. Could be good.
You're in your mid-20s at this point?
I was 20, I'd be 22.
Married?
22. No, I'd only been out with Geraldine for 3 months when we went.
I went to Australia, but he wouldn't get married.
No,
fair enough.
I know. So anyway.
Catholic boy as well.
I know. Sends me through, stop it. So he sends me through this contract, and there was not a lot of money. But the guy, it was strange because at the time, Willie Ormond, who was St Johnstone manager and Scotland manager, right? The guy who owned this football team, ran this football team, Gisborne City, his name was Ormond, and he stayed in Johnson Avenue.
Wow.
St
Johnson.
So he owned the bank, and so basically, it was just before the Rothmans league started over there. But he said this Christchurch is in the the far near Auckland, up in the northeast, in the North Island, and he says we'll be travelling to Sydney, and he says, but we've got a plane and all this stuff. I thought this is the berries, as they say. But then sadly I got a phone call from.
He saw you playing.
Aye, so and that was it. But a phone call from my sister saying that my mother had cancer. And my dad had died just before I went to Australia.
Right.
He was only 58, and then my mum had cancer. So that was it. We came home, and Jenny was quite happy. She was very, very homesick.
Right. I was going to say, were you meaning to go back, but no.
Nah, there was never a chance. Never a chance. So it was funny because that team, Gisborne, in the 1982 World Cup, when they played Scotland, 5 of their team were in the New Zealand squad.
They get beat 5-0.
5-2.
5-2.
But I'd have been about 30 at the time, just 29 in my prime time, so I could have been playing against Scotland. But 5 of the team, 5 of the Gisborne team were in that squad.
Brilliant.
But there we go. But that's it.
Such is life.
It's a bit like, you know, the Kevin Johnson song, Rock and Roll, I gave you all the best years of my life.
Yeah.
But I'm always one step behind you.
Aye.
That's the way I feel in football. You know, just almost there, but not quite.
Yeah. But that's life, isn't
But
it?
Australia was phenomenal.
And it's not over yet.
Baby,
We're starting an over 80s team soon.
Oh, dear.
And I think you're developing nicely for
Me and we are.
Did you have much success over those years with the football, with trophies and things like that, and medals?
Yeah, lots.
Yeah, lots.
Tons and tons.
Yeah. What's your most recent acquisition then?
The most recent one, that might be the walking football one that you...
Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Do you remember that day that you were assistant to me?
I was assistant.
If we had lost and you were the manager, that was the arrangement.
That was it.
But we won the cup.
I took the...
So I was the manager and Frank was my assistant.
Yeah. Was that the day I brought Big Al on as sub with a minute to go?
That's right. They scored the equaliser. They qualified us.
Which won it, yeah.
The problem is it qualified us for and I thought I'd bring this one along as well. It's got absolutely nothing to do with us, but it makes it look as though we're really good. Big Al, the substitution. And he got us qualified to get into the final, I think.
He did.
And the rest is history, as
Absolute
they say.
history.
You were obviously in charge of the Champions League side as well then, because we qualified for the Champions League from
That's
that.
right.
And you were in charge that day when we get called.
I was then.
That's all right, as long as we've got that clear.
But happily I'm back playing now after. That was almost 9 months.
That was the day you get injured? First game?
The day I got injured was the 70s tournament.
Yes.
Against Ayr. Up at the
first game?
Yeah, very first game.
Hamstring?
Yeah, but I'd done a hamstring a few weeks before at Giffnock.
Right.
It was like a grade 1-2, and you said if you're not playing today, you're not going to play again. So you forced me. So it's your fault. It's your fault.
Are you suing me now? Is that the latest?
But no, then I ripped it, and when I went to the physio, he said 12 weeks, and Cammy said he looked at it and he went, no chance, Frank, 12 weeks. He said you'll be 6 months minimum.
Cammy Forbes?
Yep, because he had a similar injury. And I must take the opportunity here to thank Cammy and Mo, because Cammy gave me these, because he'd had the injury, he knew how to treat and all this. But he said it's going to be at least 6 months, and he was right, it was more than that. But he gave me these shorts.
And how did he tell that? Was it the bruising? Or?
It was the same as my leg was totally black. And,
right.
And he knew, he says, you're never going to be fit in 3 months. But he gave me these shorts that, meant to help. They cut off the circulation right enough so you can hardly breathe.
Fair enough.
And Mo gave me one of these Theraguns, which is the massage for massaging the muscles. So and had them for weeks and weeks, and then eventually I came back. So thanks to those guys.
I saw him with that yesterday. He was lending that gun to somebody yesterday. So I said to him, "Was that your hairdryer?" I thought he was doing his hair before he came on the park. So that's what it looks like. It's very effective.
But it's good if you've got tight calves or hamstrings. I was always bothered with tight hamstrings. Chris wouldn't be, obviously, because it's a speed thing, if you're,
Well, interestingly, for me, I was speaking to a girl last night, Claire, who's a physio. She was a physio at St Mirren and a few other clubs, and she's agreed to do an interview with us.
Really?
Yes, because everybody gets injured at some point, and at our age, as we get older, it seems to take a lot longer to clear up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You find that?
Absolutely.
Did you go to physio during your rehab?
I went once to a boy he's actually the physio for the under-21s Scotland team.
Right.
And I walked in, and it was one of the guys at Gifford that recommended him.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in, he says, right, Frank, just lie up there and looked at it. And I pressed it in, he went, 12 weeks.
Right.
And I said,
So it cost you 50 quid for that?
So I said to him, because the boy said it's £45. I said, that's fine. So I had £45 cash. And I looked at his thing that he had to sign all that, and it was like £55. So I said to him, I said, look, I've only got 45. I'll have to give you a card. And he says, for what? And I says, well, that's what he says, I'm not going to charge you. He says, I'm only telling you what you already knew, Frank.
Right.
And obviously he was a friend of the guy that had recommended me and stuff. And he said, no, he says, time is the only healer for you. He says, because there's no point. He says, I could give you all the fancy ultrasound and all the rest of it. Give you 6 sessions, cost you £300. Why? It's not going to improve it one bit.
That's interesting.
So
because I know that there's guys play walking football and spend fortunes on physios. And they say to me, oh, my legs aren't right yet, can I do this? I said, they're not going to get any better.
No.
It is what it is.
Especially a hamstring, there's nothing you can do. I was watching the game last night where the boy Moreno of Seville,
he played on.
They strapped it and they played, and that's
Villarreal,
crazy.
Villarreal.
Villarreal, yeah. Crazy.
He's going to be out now.
He's going to be out. Kyogo did it with Celtic, came back. Okay, he scored a goal in the final, but he was out for months and months.
Yeah.
And these are young, fit guys at the top of the game.
Yes.
You know, that,
so you missed quite a bit of the season, didn't you? 9 months, was it?
9 months, horrendous.
Wow.
Because I'd already been out from December 2018 for 6 months at Gifford. And we were playing they have a pre-Christmas, the week before Christmas, they have a game, and then you have like the Christmas do and all the rest of it. And a guy smashed my shoulder and I was out for 6 months.
So now you've turned 70, you've become injury prone all of a sudden.
No, I've always been great. No.
So, okay, on you go.
No, I was just going to say, when I was younger, I had ligament problems and stuff, but apart from that, touch wood, it was very seldom any serious injuries when I played. So
you came back from Australia, you and Geraldine?
We came back from Australia, and we came back in November, I think it was, late October, November.
76?
76, and my mum had been diagnosed with cancer, and they were giving her a few months. We'd only been back 3 months, and Geraldine's mum died of a stroke.
Oh dear.
In her bed, just 53 years of age. So fate had it that we were back.
Yes.
But
at least you were here.
So she died in the March, and then my mother died in the July, and my dad had died just 2 years before
you went.
Aye.
Yeah.
So I was a bit of a hard time, to be honest. But so that was us back, and then
What did you do when you came back for a living, Frank?
I went and worked for a very well known.
Not that well known. You can't remember.
Can't remember the name of it, but it was a weekly collected credit company.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yes, that you might have heard of.
There are other money lenders available.
There are. So yeah. So,
apparently.
So I started working with them, and I was with them for
the Prue.
Similar.
Okay. It's the only one I know.
Starts with P.
Probably.
I'm sure most people watching have used it at one time or another.
Well, from that era, they were big companies, weren't they? They kept the economy going, really. They kind of oiled the wheels of the economy when cash was the thing,
Absolutely.
Before big credit cards and all that.
Yeah.
Because I always say to folk, I remember my mother, debt was a no-no. And that was a bridge between getting into debt, because you could get it paid away. That kept a lot of folk going.
Absolutely. And I remember I used to always get the probably check, as they called it, and I used to go down to Robert's stores at Trongate and get my football boots. Because there wasn't many sports shops in those days anyway, but there wasn't a lot of them.
I've just realised Jim McCallagher again here last week, right? This is a trailer for Jim McCallagher. He said that he got into Scotland under 15 squad, schoolboy squad. And his dad, he was told, his mum said, go and meet your dad at work today after work. What for? Just go and meet your dad. And he went and met his dad, and his dad took him to a sports shop
Uh-huh.
and said, I'm going to buy you a pair of boots, because he was playing with old tuggies, you know. And bought him a pair of Adidas, £6.50. And Jim said, I've no idea where they get the money from that, because that was more than a week's wages.
Yeah.
I bet you it was something like
It
a
would have been.
project that did it. Yeah. Because that was where you went.
That's right.
I should have shoplifter. But then we're back to Castle Milk again. Cut.
So that was it. But the good thing about working there was that they had football teams as well.
Surprise. You keep taking us back to football.
I know. But so what happened was the head office was in Bradford.
Right.
And they had a tournament in Bradford every year where they had like 13 English teams.
And one Scottish team.
And one team from Scotland. And I played for the Scottish team, obviously, and then later on I played and ran it. But they weren't very happy because we won it 5 years in a row.
Wow.
At one stage.
You ran it as well. This was all an apprenticeship for you coming to run the over 70s.
This was it.
Yeah.
Stood me in good stead. But, so we went down to Bradford for the weekend. But at first, when I first played, 1980, I played, so I was playing at the time.
And this is probably teams from all over the UK coming. That was just one big piss up, wasn't it?
Absolutely. So I'd heard about it, and the good teams that came down with some semi-pros that were in it. But they never won it. It was 2 or 3 years. And I went down in 1980, and never forget, went down the Friday, and we were staying just along from the pub where the Yorkshire Ripper had his first victim.
Okay.
And this pub, oh my goodness, it was unbelievable. The DJs were topless for a start. And my wife's watching this. I didn't know at the time, but we were in about 5 minutes, and I said, no, I'm out of here. And the guy that was running the team, big boy called Tommy Brodie, his team talked before we left the hotel. And this is a fact. We were all down there, and he says, right, guys, he says, I'm warning you. He says, we've got a tournament tomorrow. He says, we're out tonight, no more than 12 pints.
Is it between you?
And I thought he was joking, and they were going, oh, come on, Pink man, that's terrible. And I'm going,
a gallon and a half of beer.
I said, 12 pints? I don't think I drank 12 pints in my life over that day. I said, no chance. So I went out and I had a few. I thought, oh, I can't handle this. I'm back to the hotel. We played the next day, and we actually got to the final.
Right. Of course, you'd limited it to 12 pints. It makes you wonder what the other teams were doing.
There was a boy played with Pollock at the time called Paul Young. He came down, he was a cracking player.
Good singer as well.
And we managed to get to the final, but by the time the final came, the two of us were totally goosed.
Right.
We won 3-2 at half time, we get beat 9-3. Famous score. But then
Scottish English team.
I didn't play again for years, and the guy who was running the company at the time in Scotland, he asked me to take the team, and I said, look, if I'm taking the team, they're not drinking the Friday night.
10 pints.
They're not drinking the
10 pints only.
Minimum, maximum 6 pints.
And 4 halves.
And it was hard trying
you're on whiskey.
It was hard trying to change the culture.
Yeah.
But eventually did, and as I say, we won it 6 out of 7 years and 5 in a row.
The reason I say the piss up, Frank, I've been on so many trips with the polos as well as football teams, and I always ended up running as well, probably for the same reasons. It was the only sober one. But on the way down, everybody's saying, I'm playing tomorrow, big man. What's the team? What's the team? I'm in it, I'll play right back. And on the day of the game, they're all hiding. You can't get them. They're on the wrong room, in the wrong place, or not there at all, or feeling too ill to play football. You're trying to scrape an 11 together. Because once Glaswegians go out of Glasgow, it's, gloves are off, aren't they? You hear it up the back of the bus. 8 in the morning.
But just funny you saying there,
I said something.
You're running, and who's playing the next day? There was a guy in Castlemilk. There was 2 amateur teams, White Hart and Avoca.
Right.
And I actually ran White Hart for a few years. But really good teams in different leagues. But they had a Sunday team, which was the best of both teams.
Right.
And it was a brilliant team. And they got to the final in the Scottish Cup. It was like pub league. So they got to the final. And the boy that ran it, there was some tough cookies in it, as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. So all week they're saying to him, am I playing? And he's going, you're playing. So they're playing at Tynecastle in the final, right? Wow. So they were saying, right, so they're getting out on the bus and the guy's like, oh, I am definitely playing today. So I saw that.
25 of them.
Aye, so they gets there and it's right.
Here's a team.
Just remember, here's it. Right, what's the team, John? And he's like that. Oh, hold on, I'll get in a minute. Right? So he goes out the door, and the next thing he slides the team sheet under the door because
Lock the door.
you get 17 guys there that all think they're playing,
Yeah.
right? And it was like bedlam. So he's had to watch it. He's away up in the stand watching the game because the ones that weren't playing were looking for him.
Yeah.
But in the way back, apparently the police stopped the bus because they get in their shop and totally raided.
I'm famous for that as
I
well.
know.
But you know how hard it is. That we were in the cup final. Roman Vale, the team that I ran down in Argyll, got to the cup final, and you can only take 16.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately you've got to tell 3 or 4 guys that they're not coming. You have to make them assistants and stuff like that. You're the kit man today and all that stuff. First reserve, second reserve, and the 5 that are on the bench are really disappointed.
I mean, amateur players, they just want to play, don't they?
That's
They're
it.
not getting paid or anything,
That's
so
it.
they just want to play football.
We get beat 2-1 that day, and it was partly because I gave the 5 subs a game.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
never
It's
do
a fatal mistake. Fatal. But see, you've got all this experience of running teams, which makes me wonder why you're not running a walking football team yet. You're kidding on, you were my assistant. Now we've got Peter Jordan, poor Peter thrown in at the deep end.
Yeah, but I'm still playing.
You can play manager. You were still playing then as well, no doubt.
I was, to a certain
Yeah.
extent I was.
So we'll come back to this off camera, don't worry about that. So the Provi, was that your career then from then on? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was, but in 2000 and, when was that? 2004, 2005, they were starting they were
You
opening.
get injured dropping a check, picking a check up. You
Yeah.
get a bad injury.
No, quite. What they were doing was they started the business overseas.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it just a UK business
It
until
was just
then?
a UK business.
Okay.
Funnily enough, I just realised this recently. For some reason, we didn't operate in Wales.
Right.
I don't know why. We did Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, but not Wales. No, I don't know if it's some legal thing. But
That'd be strange because the Welsh and English laws.
I know. I don't know why. But in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started opening up overseas to see how it went. And they kicked off in Poland. And then
Wales.
Wales. Wales still didn't come on.
No.
Czech Republic, etc. So one of the guys that I'd actually started in the business, he was overseas, and I'd met him one time, and he said, "You know, fancy applying for whatever?" And I said, "No." I said, "I'm not get away with that," because my family were up a bit by then. But I said, "No, it's a bit early." And then a few years later, he was over in Prague. And he said, "We're going to be looking for people, Frank. Why don't you apply and all that sort of stuff?" So I says to Gerald, I says, "What do you think?" And she says, "So we'll see how it goes." So I got the job in Prague, but it was a secondment. So
Okay.
it was like a 6
That's
month,
good though. See if you like it.
secondment.
Yeah.
So that was fine. So I went over there, and have you been in Prague?
Yes.
It's
Beautiful, sir. Yeah. Tremendous.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. So I went over, and everybody liked it because they were all over visiting me and stuff like that. And I was back every.
Or your family all of a sudden want to know you, don't they, when you live somewhere
I
like
know.
Prague? Free accommodation.
I was back every month, and it was only 2.5, 3 hour flight. So
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
great. So again, there was football involved because they had they were starting to build up the countries. They were getting their own football teams.
Of course.
So everything was going great, and then my boss said to me, "Look, we want you to go to Mexico." I said,
Wow.
"What?" He said, "They opened up Mexico. They wanted experienced people, and there wasn't anybody more experienced than me. I'd been in the business for a long time." And I thought, yeah,
It's really because they wanted a football team in
That was
Mexico.
it.
That was what it
That was
really
it.
was.
absolutely.
Nothing to do with your work.
No, not at all. So I thought, so I said to Jen, she was like, "No, man,
Where is it?
Mexico, it's a bit far." So to be fair to her, she said, "Yeah, I want to go." And because I had a son and daughter, Paul, who's older, and Steph, they were both at uni, etc. So I said, "Okay." So I went to Mexico.
You go on your own.
I went on that.
Right.
I was on Northern Pride as well.
Right.
And it's funny because when you tell people you've been in Mexico, oh, you're dead lucky and all that. But
Whereabouts is it Mexico City?
no, we couldn't go in Mexico City because
I don't fancy collecting debt in
No,
Mexico.
Mexico City. No, they had these what they call sequestros, and any business people.
Did you get your own tank?
And a lot of business people were just getting lifted off the street. They would take them away
Yes.
and then phone up to the company, right, we want whatever, and then give them back. So it's called sequestration.
What's doing you were worth?
Nothing. Nothing. So, but they wouldn't.
We'll lend you money.
I don't get a check. So they wouldn't open in Mexico City.
We'll give you £1 million for it, but you pay it back. £10
a week.
for the rest of your life.
So Puebla was the place.
Okay.
That's 75 miles.
East, north, south, west?
South
of Mexico.
going towards Central America, yeah. So I went there, Puebla, and that was quite a nice place. But
Beautiful country though,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. But so they said to us, right, we're going to ask you to go down to a place called Villahermosa, right?
Okay.
And the reason why none of the guys, most of them were married, so
Yes.
that had been a hard shift. So I said, where is it? And they said, look, it's down the road a wee bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was fine.
You're in the back of your van at
And a
this
Monday
point,
morning,
blindfolded.
right, so the Monday morning goes in, they says, right, there's the keys, there's your Jeep, there's your translator. And I said, right, and they said, we booked you into this hotel. I said, well, then I'll travel back. They said, no, it's actually 400 miles south from Puebla, almost on the
border.
The Honduran
Yeah.
border. And
carry this package with you, man.
So you go in. So I said to the girl, I said, right, so how long does it take us? She says, well, nobody's ever been here before.
Yeah, a history of people trying to get rid of it. That's strange.
You're no friends. Why don't you
not
go
far enough away. That's another 400 miles.
He saw his promotion.
So we get in the car, and so we're driving. She said, I have no idea where we're going. So
Did you ask if there was a football team?
no, that's it. So I'm driving down, and it's literally nothing. I mean, it was nothing. And I'm looking at the petrol gauge, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's got to be somewhere. So eventually we came in this place, so we drives in and goes to the petrol station. Because any stabbing based team, any Burger King, so I'm sitting with the translator, and I says to her, where are we? And she says, I don't know, frankly. I says, going to ask somebody where we are, for near Villahermosa. So she goes up and she says to this guy, Spanish officer, comes back, and she's laughing. And I says, what is it? I says, did you not ask them where we were? She says, yes, right, I did. And I says, and what did they say? And she said, Burger King.
That's good, that question.
So I was like, what? So it turned out to be a place called Minatitlan, which was only 20 miles long. But so we went to.
So you're nearly there.
So I went to Villahermosa. I was there a week, and they had the worst floods they've ever had in their life.
Were you setting up the business then? Was that the idea? You recruit people
there?
there?
The business was in its infancy, so they'd had the branches and everything. So my role was to go down and train them in the business.
And get the system.
And get people in, get the system, look at the system, see, and try and improve it, whatever. But they had the structure sort of in place, but it was just to make sure they'd never had anybody, any expat down, really, apart from the very, very initial. So I was there a couple of weeks, and then the place got flooded, basically. It's a Tabasco region, and it was just like the offices. There was like 20 foot of water up the offices and everything. They hadn't. So I'd phoned Bradford, and I says, "Look, what are we doing for these people?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I says, "Well, I've got an agent who can't come in because she's on top of a roof. There's alligators coming through in her house, and all the rest of it was just like crazy stuff."
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, what do you want us to?" He said to me, "Well, what do you want us to do?" I said, "We'll need to try and get some money from our funds or do something
to lend them."
So,
but we'll get £5 a week.
So a couple of days later, I'm out with a big pair of waders
collecting the money.
Agents' houses, giving them food parcels.
Yeah.
But the thing was, when you were going into these areas, the people thought that you were the government coming to help them or something. So they were all wanting, and we only had enough for the people that worked for us. So
and you'd be the only gringo in the place, I suppose.
But the worst thing was the football parks were flooded. So
Oh dear God!
I couldn't get a game.
So it only lasted 2 weeks.
So I was there. I was in Mexico for it was about 7 or 8 months, and
Right.
I could only come back once, and I was like every 3 months. So
Yeah, it's too far.
I phoned my mate. He was at that time. He was still in Czech, and I said, look, Kenneth, I need to get back. He says, well, there's 2 places that you can go to. He says, Russia or Romania.
Right.
I says, I don't fancy Russia. I says, no, but
Why the overseas stuff at this point?
well, it was just to expand the business,
Right.
pure and simple, because
So business was
there's
in
only
growth
so
mode
much you
then.
could do. In the UK, it wasn't. It was
Right.
getting harder, and the bad debt and everything was getting worse because you were giving more to less people.
Yes.
There's only one way that's
It's a
going to
bigger risk. Yeah.
exactly. So it was expand the business.
You sure your wife wasn't in this? You can phone out.
Aye.
Where can we say?
Where's the furthest you can get them there?
Did you ever see the boss's car in your driveway at any point?
No, he was over with me. But so I said, let's go to Romania. So I went there, and Romania was just
Wild.
magnificent.
Was it?
It's funny because when you say people, I worked in Mexico and I worked in Romania, they'll say, oh, Romania. The opposite. Romania was, the people were lovely,
Yes.
really nice.
Yes.
Mm.
You tend to find that nearly everywhere, though, don't you? That it's the people. If you get below that level of the propaganda, the people are just people.
I know.
Just like that.
But it's funny because the only time apart from today where anybody ever interviewed me was in Bucharest.
Right.
And with a couple of the guys.
Police.
A few times.
Have a caution.
I ran, at that time I was playing and running the Romanian works team.
Works team.
So
This is going to be. See the trophy cabinet we're going to have now that I know this. Like.
but Motherwell were playing Stour in Jim Russell tell me better.
Well, but the last time they played outside of Scotland, that's for sure.
So I went with a couple of the Polish friends I had and a couple of Romanian boys, and I walked the ground, and one of the people in the office had bought it. It'd been my birthday, and they bought me the Hadji strip because
Right.
they knew I liked.
Yeah.
No, the Rangers boy and his father.
No, it's
obviously.
that.
So I'm walking along to the game with this Hadji strip on. So I walks by the Romanian camera crew. Of course, and they're talking to the Romanian boys.
There's
And
this
the main guy
Franny
says-
with a Hadji stuff. There's Franny Hadji.
Here's that Franny again. So she says, come here for word. One of them spoke English, so the cameraman said, why are you in a Hadji? You in a Hadji strip when you're a Motherwell supporter? And I said, oh, wait a minute. I'm not a Motherwell
I've
supporter.
been called a few things. That's ridiculous.
And I said, and he said, have you heard the Hadji? And I said, of course. So I start chatting with some of the guys who played with and all that.
Yeah.
And that was fine. It was only 10, 15 second stuff on the way in. So on a Friday night, on my way up in the north of
Because of mistaken identity.
the Friday night on my way up in the north of the country, I get a phone call from one of the boys, and he says, put the news on, you're on the news, Frank. I says, what, Romanian news? And he says, yeah, that clip. So by the time I got to the telly, it was off. But one of the girls that worked with, she actually contacted the company and,
Right, got it.
got it.
So this was not your first experience with a professional TV company?
And it's still not.
Yeah.
But so that was that. So I was in Romania, and then they said, we want you to go to Russia.
Right.
I said, no.
Wife had been on the phone
They
again.
didn't have a football team,
Oh, that's
Nah,
needless.
they didn't have
Where was it? Moscow?
Moscow. So I said, no, I'm not going to Russia. But then they said, look, do us a favour, we're just setting up, could you go there for a few months? I said, I'm only going for a few months, I'm definitely not staying there. So I went, but I went in late October
Right.
through to like March, and the warmest I ever got was about seriously, about minus 16 degrees. It was
I'm
cold.
going to say Baltic.
Very well, but no football. There was no football anyway.
Well, no, that's just indoors.
Yeah.
But no football at all. So that was a real problem.
That was a real problem. But these tournaments, you had Mexico would come over for the tournament. You had Poland, Holland, Hungary, Czech Republic. When I worked in the Czech Republic, I also covers
What tournaments? Is this your company tournaments?
Company tournament.
Inviting all these guys
It was
in?
unbelievable.
Yeah,
It was like the World Cup. You know, you all
Yeah.
come out with your strips on. They played the national anthem.
brilliant.
Been great to video. But I stand there like that with the Romanian strip on and all this.
Yeah. See, I've got some inside knowledge here as well, Frank, that I never knew about all this. Australia's fine, but when you joined the company, they sent you to Mexico, Romania, Moscow. Some real war zones, some pretty rough stuff going on in there. And then Possil.
I know.
So you really hit rock bottom then.
Absolutely.
I'm a Possil boy, so I'm allowed to say that. So how did that come about? Is this when you came back from Moscow? You were.
Oh no, Possil, no, that was before I went.
All right,
Before
because that's
No,
toughen you up.
Sorry, no.
That's why
no,
you went to these
when I
places.
come back, it wasn't Proven I worked for. It was another credit company,
Right.
and basically I ran the whole of Glasgow, which
Right.
obviously had a couple of offices in Possil and everywhere else.
Okay.
But
you weren't there at Charting the Doors at this point anyway.
I still was,
Aye.
Oh, you did that because
Training.
Aye, but no, I was still always charmed doors. But that company didn't have a football team.
Oh, needless. Didn't last long there then.
It's funny, and on a serious note, though, see whenever I was working, and football was always there.
Yeah.
See when you're working, and especially that company, because they were sort of a bit cut rate, and I was working crazy hours, even though I was basically running the
The
Glasgow.
company.
There was no release. At least if I could have been playing football
Yes.
and doing
It's
something,
just work.
but there wasn't any. And it was actually Andy Gallagher that sort of saved me for that because, well, I'd retired, but there was nobody I knew playing football. And I actually met him one day coming out of the Avenue, Newton Mearns, and it was a Thursday afternoon. He had his kit bag, and I'm saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Shoplifting.
He said, "I was."
It's a green up boy, isn't
That was a Monday that he shoplifting
he?
it. But he said, "I was playing football." I says, "This time a Thursday morning." I said, "Where?" He says, "Gifford North."
Right.
I says, "What do you know about Gifford North?" Because Andy didn't. He was when the front side, obviously was great and all that.
Aye, he's
And
the
I had-
other side of the
I'd
fence,
played with
so-
Gifford North, and I was a member of the club for years. And he said, "Oh no, it's through a guy that I knew and blah blah."
Right.
So I says, "When did he play?" "Thursday morning." Beauty. So the following week, because I used
You're there.
and he'd only just sort of joined Gifford. I walked in, of course they were all at back to Franny.
Franny!
Where are you? And then
What did I say?
Is that Franny back?
That's not
oh
what they
no,
were
no, that
saying,
Franny again. So that was 2013,
Right.
and then I chauffeured Mr. Gallagher for years.
To give up.
And again now with the Walton football. So he was instrumental in me playing at Gifford and Walton football.
What was in the kit bag? That's what we're all wanting to
still
know
don't
now. For the green up
I still
boy,
don't know.
what was he bringing up?
Certainly was
The
the
green
football
up.
boots.
That
So
kind of brings us full circle,
I know.
right up to date.
But the walking football has been brilliant because there was, as I said, there was the Gifford time was getting a bit dangerous for me. I had quite a few bad injuries.
Yeah.
Because you've got a couple of guys that still think they're playing with the Albion Rovers and all this.
And it's one of the dangers of the walking, because the idea is to help people get back some level of fitness.
Mhm.
That's on one level. Other people's to keep them a level of fitness,
Absolutely.
because the longer we can keep active and mobile, the better.
Mhm.
But now that we're having success at that, we get guys who want to start running again and tackling again, and it's keeping injury free that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because we all want to go on holiday. You're heavily involved with the grandkids as well, aren't you?
Absolutely.
We've heard them
Absolutely.
playing next door. You kept them amused.
Say hello to the son. Yeah, they're fantastic. I've got four.
What age are they?
Grandkids. The oldest is Jude. He's 6. Then I've got Josh and Max. They're both 3. And then we've got the gorgeous Grace.
Right.
She's just 1 and a bit.
Right.
And
they're all different. Can you see all the
aye,
different?
they're totally. And anybody. This conversation with Jim Houston. Jim's got a couple of
Yes.
grandkids the same age, and on their own they're brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The 2 boys that my son Paul has, Josh and Jude, they're on their own amazing. Together,
A nightmare. Just kick off.
crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Of course, Jude's older. He just whines a wee guy up.
Yeah.
Then I've got Max and Grace there. That's my daughter Stephanie's 2, and they're just phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
I'm in my 6th year now listening to that music. It was going
Yeah.
say hello to the sun, but no, they're brilliant. So the problem I have with football as well is that you're never quite sure when you're having to watch them.
Yeah.
Sometimes thankfully, I'll always make the tournaments and stuff. That's no problem. But no,
Because we
it's,
can plan those things ahead. But you're right. And we always get a call off. I always say if we've got a squad of 8 or 9, there's always going to be a call off,
there is.
especially the over 70s.
Yeah.
Because there's a family thing crops up or whatever. But it's just life, isn't it?
But do you not think it's unbelievable that we're talking about over 70s?
Yeah, I
even
really
over
do.
60s?
Yeah.
You know, as I say, my dad died when he was 58, and he stopped playing football when he was probably in his late 20s.
Again, Aldo last week said, I'm 75. And when one of the kids says, what do you want for your birthday, Dad? A pair of boots, you know? It's fantastic.
Well, I just bought a pair of boots. They're probably the most expensive boots I've ever got. And my son's saying, you're paying
And
that
what
for
are
a
you
pair
paying
of
them up over?
boots?" Probably cheap.
10
You can't now
weeks, 20 weeks.
because Robert's not there anymore.
Is it not?
They've gone now.
Right.
No, they've gone. Well, they
But
made
there's still lenders available.
Yeah, but they made.
In fact, you want to get your advert in now.
They made the
Christmas? Wondering how to pay for Christmas?
They probably made the mistake of putting a CEO in charge called Peter Crook.
There was a clue there, wasn't it? So over that couple of years, Frank, because we're just coming out the other end of a horrible period now, aren't we? With the COVID lockdown and all the rest of it. What did you do during that period? Not being able to see the grandkids was horrible as well for a while.
That was that was a nightmare. It was very, very difficult for everybody else. You know, you want to see them, but at the same time you've got to keep everybody safe. So my main release at that stage was walking, which I loved doing
most
anyway.
of us, yeah.
And
Good practice for the football that we play.
not really the way I play it. But no, so I'm walking and just, and I hadn't really seen anybody out with the family circle. And I was out walking one day and I was just coming up past Parklands, and this young fit guy running towards me. And handsome fit guy. And then I thought, oh no, it's Chris Buck. And Chris, to be fair, was running. He lives just down the road from Parklands. I live
was
up
him practicing his walking football.
Yeah. So I live up. We actually met this at a crossroads because I live up that way and he lives down that way, and it was great. You know, just
you live in the good bit.
Absolutely. But no, but it was great
to see another face.
To see somebody that you knew, and we must have stood there for about an hour.
Running all that time.
He's just looking for an excuse to run.
Your runners improve. You've been away for 4 hours.
That's so he could go home and say, what a run that was.
But no, it's amazing, and it just brings it home to you that, you know, when you're not seeing anybody, it's, you know,
we used to go on the bikes. Davy Denham and I went out cycling for a bit, and then we got a ball and went to Glasgow Green. I remember sneaking out of the house in my haversack and had a wee kick in Glasgow Green. We were about 30 yards apart, and I remember the Polish coming through. I wonder if they're going to say anything, you know.
We did that. We did that. We did that.
Must have been different days.
Yes.
We did that. Me, Chris, Ricky, Jim, Andy. In fact, remember we went up to Mearns, to the school at Mearns. They got chased off of there one day, remember?
The jobs were.
Through a hole in the fence. Took a while to get Chris through it.
I'm going to say some hole that's called a gate.
But that was amazing. We were playing like two aside. Remember?
Well, we did the same. Andy Mackey, the goalie, and Davy Kinnaird. We ended up four. We were playing foot golf, and all sorts of things. That's all.
To play that different level.
That was a big team.
And then you're saying that you were pleased to see anyone. We were until Scally turned up.
Oh no!
And I'll tell him now if he ever watches this. He said to me, when are you here? And I said, we're here every Thursday at 10 o'clock. So we made a point the next Thursday we went to Queen's Park.
In case they dropped Billy with him.
Frank McCann came down in Green as well.
He did.
So at times of maybe it was 60s.
And that's how Dennis Donnelly started up, because Andy Elliott was obviously Pollock was a connection at that point. And I said to Andy, we could use Dennis Donnelly to do what we were doing anyway. And four of us went there and played. We made a kind of tennis court and played.
Four is made six. We could have had 5 aside.
There you go.
That's what happened. We invited 2 or 3 others, and we're starting to open up a wee bit. Then you're allowed to go out and exercise in groups of more than blah blah blah, and that's how Dennis Donnelly started. Before Glasgow Life were way behind at that point.
But Pollock kept me going during the lockdown as well, because remember you had the sessions down at the Harmony Row.
Yes.
And There's no other show in town. And I remember going down first.
That was the same session because
Yeah.
it varied from Dennis Donnell to Hampney Row.
But I remember going the first time with Andy, and after I felt quite bad because I thought most of the guys were the old Bella guys.
Yes,
And then all of a sudden, these people
you're
that are
infiltrating.
and were a bit fitter and all the rest of it. And I thought the guys were like,
Everybody talks about, they never thought they played football at our age.
Aye.
Never thought you'd get chased out of a park.
Yeah.
Johnny. It's the 60s. I know. You'd be 70 at that time.
It got away.
do you remember the day we were down at Green as well? And Ricky went mad with that woman.
With a dog.
No, her it worked. She worked for Glasgow Life, and she was in the changing rooms at the Green, and she came over and she chased us from the pub. You know that day?
So Ricky Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she chased us, and he said, but we're not bothering anybody. And she says, you might be spreading coronavirus. And he's like, wait a minute. and he was, as Ricky does, he wasn't quite happy about it, but he was right enough. And she literally chased us off the park. There was nobody else there. There was not a soul in the whole of the Green. 4 guys kicking a ball, as you say, 30 metres apart.
And that's what you were doing. You just kicked the ball at each other.
Yeah. But yeah. So what football? Yeah, I get a lot to thank it for.
Yeah, and lots more to do. A lot of aspirations now to fill the trophy cabinet. They want to get our own trophy cabinet, Frank.
Absolutely.
Now that you're a pot boy, did you ever dream of all that experience of football since you were 4 or 5 years of age, playing all the time, the teams you've ran, the countries you've played in? Did you ever dream you'd make it to Paul United?
I never aspired to that, Sam. Just this,
There you are.
one of the
And
best
we're
things.
really
Thank you
proud
very much.
to have a Franny in the team
Thank
now.
you very much.
a big Franny. Scottish Cup on the 11th of June. We need to get some plans in place for filming because it's going to be outdoors for starters. So we need to think about camera locations and
Well, it's raining.
unpredictable the weather can be. Hang on a wee minute. Hello, Simon McLean, talking walking football. Hi, yes, it is. Geraldine at Lynch. No, oh, Frank's wife, yes, Frank Lynch, yes, he's just left. We did the interview this morning, Geraldine. I think he'll be home soon. Right, okay, yes, he did. He was talking about where he had worked all across the world, really. Yeah, well, there's walking football, yeah, it's global, yeah. Yeah, well, I know that Chris, who does the filming with us and the editing and all that, he's got contacts in Spain and Portugal, further afield. Morocco, North Africa, further afield. Chris is
Colin's brother plays in Australia.
Australia. No.
Not dangerous enough.
Bolivia? No, I don't know anybody in Bolivia. What, are you looking for somewhere that you can move to, that you can go to for no, just Frank. Right, okay. Okay, there's kind of pattern there with his work pattern, working abroad. I'll see what I can do, Geraldine, and I'll get back to you. Oh, no, I won't mention it to him. No, I won't say a word to him. No. And you'll pay towards the costs. That's okay. I'm sure we could maybe find something there. Kiev, yes. I'm not sure what the situation is in there just now. We're getting pictures and whatnot, but we'll see what we can do. It's okay, don't get upset. We'll get something sorted for you. Thanks, Geraldine. Thanks for calling. No, I won't say a word. I won't say a word to Franny. Bye now. What's all that about?
What was that?
Geraldine Lynch. Remember Franny?
What's she wanting?
She's wanting rid of Frank, obviously. I've seen your car up there a couple of times, actually.
That's unbelievable, eh?
Bit of cut there.